Kiroche, CBS, or GNW as the nominee for appointment to the said position of Inspector General of the National Police Service. Mr. Speaker, the Speaker of National Assembly and the Speaker of the Senate via communication made on the 1st August 2024 and conveyed the message from His Excellency the President nominating Mr. Kanja as the nominee for appointment to the said position of the Inspector General of National Police Service. Consequently, the Speaker of both houses, the National Assembly and the Senate, referred the matter to the National Assembly relevant committees of both Senate and National Assembly. And according to Section 6(9) of the Public Appointment, the Parliamentary Approval Act, the Clerk of the Assembly and the Clerk of the Senate invited interested members of the public to submit any representation by written statement on oath with supporting evidence on the stability of the nominee for the appointment to the position of the Inspector General. The invitation was made with advertisement that appeared in the Daily Nation, on the Standard newspaper on 3rd August. A total of 30 memoranda were received regarding stability of the said nominee. Mr. Speaker, out of the 30 memorandum, only 2 met the requirement of the law. One of the memoranda by one Mr. Eliud Karanja Matindi, who contested the nomination, was not nominated for approval of appointment, basing lack of fair competition and merit. After consideration of the memorandum, the committee observed that under the Article 245 of the Constitution, Section 12(2), the National Police Service Act, Cap 84, the Inspector General of the Police is nominated by the President with the approval of Parliament. That not submitting into competitive process. So we found that it not actually meet the threshold. On the other memorandum that we received was one by Engineer Madenge, who, of course, who contested the stability of the nominee, citing some conflict of interest and an issue they had over land. And after the committee interrogated, the nominee had responded satisfactorily to the issue raised by Engineer Madenge, to the satisfaction of the committee during the approval hearing. Mr. Speaker, this notification was followed up with a letter to the nominee inviting him to attend the approval hearing, which was done by the joint said committee. During the approval hearing, the nominee, we had, of course, as a procedure, a questionnaire which was filled by the nominee, and as a requirement of Chapter 6, the committee received responses from ODPP, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the KRA, the Higher Education Loan Board, the DCI, Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, and the Credit Reference Bureau, which all of them cleared the nominee. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Article 118 of the Constitution, Section 6(3) of the Public Appointment, and Standing 45(3) of the National Assembly Standing Orders, and the Standing Order 77(2) of the Senate Standing Order, the Clerk of the National Assembly and the Senate, by way of advertisement in the print media, notify the general public of the intention of committee to attend the approval hearing. And for record, Honorable Speaker, we had actually a handful number of Kenyans who were in the vetting in the room during the process. The committee on 13th August 2024 undertook the approval hearing. That was on a Thursday. A pre-hearing. And on 15th August 2024, the joint committee of both houses conducted the approval hearing. And they were guided by the provision of the Constitution and the Public Appointment Act of the National Police Service. During the approval hearing, Mr. Speaker, the committee considered nominees' duly filled questionnaire, the curriculum vitae, the candidate academic credentials, provisional training and experience, and the personal integrity and the background to assess the stability of the candidate for the said position. The committee made several observations, Mr. Speaker. The nominee, until his nomination to the said position, was acting Inspector General of Police. He had served this republic in the service for 39 years, the record 39 years. And he started working as a constable since 1985 and rose through the ranks to the position of DIG before he was actually made the acting IG. From the police constable, the nominee had actually worked almost in every part of this country, to include the remotest part, and more importantly, the North Rift, and even the Northeastern, which are areas that are considered to be most insecure in this country. The nominee, Mr. Speaker, had on the issue of course, academic qualification, which is a requirement of law. The nominee holds a bachelor's degree in commerce, the finance option, from Inorore University, awarded in 2014, and this diploma in business management acquired in 2009. Mr. Speaker, it's important to note that the issue of the degree, because it was an issue that actually some members brought about, the nominee's degree from University was validated and authenticated by the Commission for University Education, following a request by the nominee to the Commission. And the same letter from the Commission for University Education is actually in the report and signed by one Gilbert Opanga. Mr. Speaker, during his tenure in the police service, the nominee led critical security operation, notably the shift coordination and response during the Dusit terrorist attack in 2009. We all remember that sad day. The nominee was actually the person coordinating the operation, which was very successful. Besides, the nominee led several operations to include Operation Fagia Msitu in Boni Forest in Lamu County, which had actually tremendously reduced the terrorist activities in the region. The kind of the tranquility and the peace we have in that region, to a big extent, is attributed to the effort of the nominee before this House today. The nominee, Honorable Speaker, holds several awards in recognition of his outstanding and distinguished service to this nation in various capacities and responsibilities. And I think I'd earlier included a mention that he has actually worked virtually in every corner of this country. So he's a man that he knows every corner of this country like the palm of his hand. While serving as the acting Inspector General, the nominee demonstrated strong leadership abilities and managerial skills. And actually, when we were doing the supplementary, because he was acting then, we actually saw a man who is a team player, which is a critical leadership skill for a person of that position, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during the approval hearing, the nominee was able, to the satisfaction of the committee, to exhibit knowledge in matters relating to the security, to law, management, leadership, and quality necessary to administer and manage command of the National Police Service as a discipline service prescribed under Section 11 of the National Police Service. Mr. Speaker, I think I mentioned that we really canvassed and looked critically into the background and the record of the officer, and it was very impressive to note that for having that 9 years, this is an officer that has never been implicated in any issues of corruption, in any issue of indiscipline, or any wrongdoing. Is an officer who his level of discipline is par excellent, and a very patriotic officer who is patriotic to this nation. Mr. Speaker, the nominee, as necessary from the interrogation and for experience spanning the almost 40 years, we were convinced that the nominee had the requisite experience and qualification to hold the office of Inspector General of National Police Service. Mr. Speaker, among the very critical issues that I want to really discuss, we all know the current issues that are going in this country and the very needed reform in the police service, which are actually well enumerated in the Maraga Task Force report. And I want also to mention that even as we speak, this morning, His Excellency the President had launched the strategic plan to see the implementation of the police reform that were actually as stipulated in the Maraga report. And the committee was able to interrogate the nominee to see the stability for the said position. And we were convinced, Honorable Speaker, that this man is the best fitted man to implement and oversee the police reform. Mr. Speaker, we took the nominee through several very critical issues affecting this country, to include the issue of insecurity in the North Rift and the eastern part of the country. And he was able really to convince the committee that the man is best fitted for the job. Having already been actually the commandant of JSU, he has been actually trained in several training during his service, in this, his years in the service, and has been actually even in the training colleges. And more critically, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Speaker, we all know that one of the critical issues in the police service is the issue of the public trust and the corruption. The committee was convinced beyond any reasonable doubt that one Mr. Douglas Kanja will be able to handle the issue of corruption in the police service. We were so much impressed, and actually to the disbelief of many, that the worth of Mr. Kanja was 46 million, which was actually, it was hard for members to believe, knowing that how the corruption is rampant in our police service, and he has been serving in high ranks. That demonstrates the ability that this nominee will be able to handle the ghost of corruption in the police service and bring dignity to our service. Mr. Speaker, without taking much time, I want really to convince this House, or I want to prove to this House, that the man before you today is the man that Kenyans need, is the man that the Kenyan service need to bring about the change that we have been looking for too long, for many years, especially in the reform in the police service, to stamp out corruption, and of course, to take this country forward in matters security. Mr. Speaker, based on the observation made, I want to recommend that this House approve the nomination of Mr. Douglas Kiroche, CBC, OGNW, for appointment as Inspector General of the Police Service. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move, and I now request my very able Vice Chair, Honorable Retired Colonel Dido Raso, to second this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Raso, but order for record purposes, you did pronounce yourself on Article 247. It is Article 245 2A of the Constitution. Proceed, Honorable Raso.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to second, and I want to say from the onset that I associate myself fully with the statement that has been made by my chairman, that Mr. Kanja has been found suitable by the Joint Committee of the Senate and that of the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Kanja started as a police constable and rose through the ranks. He actually went through 13 stages to be the nominee and contestant for the position of the IG. He waited for his time. He waited on the line. For that reason, I think these are the sort of people who, when they appear before Parliament or anybody, bodies that are going to determine whether individuals are suitable, it indicates that they have qualified to be where they are, irrespective of tribe, irrespective of the regions they come from. They are on a professional line that we can all say that, yes, he waited for his time and he has done due diligence for the work that he has been given. Honorable Speaker, Mr. Kanja is not new to this House. He is the immediate former Deputy Inspector General of the National Police Service, where he was at vigilance. And he has been able to communicate, to talk to members of Parliament, who, when you have issues concerning your constituents, he has been very diligent to attend to those without discrimination or without feigning that members of Parliament are actually disturbing him. So among these many things are the reasons why we as a committee, we have said Mr. Kanja is suitable, and we ask the House to join us in approving his nomination. Honorable Speaker, there were memorandums which were presented about this particular nominee. And of those 23, it is actually mind-boggling to find for the first time a policeman at that level. Majority of the memorandum were positive. They were in his favor. And of note was, I think, a memorandum that talked about his action during the Dusit attack, that infamous terrorist attack that took so many lives, and his heroic actions, and that of the other policemen who were with him. It is what saved so many lives on that fateful day. Honorable Speaker, As the chairman has already said, many questions were raised with this particular nominee, particularly on the issues of corruption in the police force, which is a teething thing. And many of us sitting in this house will actually turn around and say the police is the most corrupt institution. But one of the questions that this particular nominee was able to explain in very fine detail is that the issue of corruption is not just akin to the police force, but it is a societal problem that we must begin to tie it down from the early age, in primary school, in secondary school, so that the society is fully aware about the bane of corruption in our society. Honorable Speaker, on the invasion of Parliament, this particular nominee was able to say with frankness that indeed that was a breach and there was omission or commission on the part of the police service, and they should have done better on that particular instance. Honorable Speaker, this particular nominee, I think we, as a committee, we have confidence that he will be able to bring the National Police Service, IPOA, the oversight body of the National Police Service, and also the National Police Service Commission. Over the years, these three institutions that look at policy, oversight, and the functioning of the police have not been working together. It has been a concern to the committee, and we have asked him, in case the House approves his nomination, he must be prepared to walk the talk to make sure that those three bodies work hand in glove. Finally, Honorable Speaker, it is the issue of the police. In the recent months, the police has been at the center of debate, both in the national media, among us as politicians and leaders. We must ask ourselves, does Kenya need a police force? What type of a police force do we need? Because the police will generally reflect the character of the nation. We cannot say we have good people and we have a bad police force. It doesn't really add up. The police is a constitutional body. They must act within the Constitution. But equally, the Kenyan citizenry must also begin to identify with the police that we citizens must act within the law. The police are there under the Constitution to safeguard lives and properties. Those are my property and your property. The life of all of us as we sleep in our homes. There are policemen who are on the beat in the night to make this country secure. And for that reason, we must look beyond small or petty issues that the police are this, the police are that. It is important to actually identify that today our police are doing a very good job in the Caribbean to restore normalcy to a country that had just gone to the dogs. And that is how professional this police force is. Finally, Honorable Speaker, I want to join my chairman to request the House to approve this nominee. Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Order, honorable members. Let me first, before I propose the question, acknowledge the presence of Ndundune Second School in the public gallery this morning. Ndundune Second School is from Kibwezi constituency, Makueni County. Honorable members, I now propose the question. Order, honorable members. I now propose the question that, taking into account the consideration of the finding of the Joint Committee of the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs and the Senate Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations, in its report on the vetting of Mr. Douglas Kanja Kirocho for approval as the Inspector General of the National Police Service, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 17 September 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 245(2)(a) of the Constitution, Section 12(1) of the National Police Service Act, Cap. 84, and Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, Cap. 7F, this House approves the appointment of Mr. Douglas Kanja Kirocho as the Inspector General of the National Police Service. The interest in this is overwhelming, and therefore I'll not put the question. The Honorable Tiende Amolo.
Could I get the mic? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the committee for the report. From the outset, I can confirm that I've read the report. I have read the recommendation for approval of the nominee, and I support that proposal. But Mr. Speaker, may I, on the outset, point out two things. One, contrary to what the chairman has said, that in their opinion, it is not open to subject such matters to merit and fair competition. I think that's against the Constitution. Every provision should be subjected to merit and fair competition, but that's not an indictment of the nominee. That is an issue of the nominating authority, so it cannot be held against the nominee. Secondly, the Vice Chair, in seconding the motion, used the word police force. We no longer have a police force. We have a police service, and that's where our problems begin. The nominee, as they are coming in, subject to this House's approval, must understand that they'll be running a police service and not a police force. Mr. Chairman, I want to support this because this nominee will be the 16th Inspector General, actually the 6th Inspector General since 2012, but if you start from 1964, they would be the 16th, because there were 10 before that. Mr. Chairman, I have looked keenly at the CV of the nominee, and this nominee is being nominated as the Inspector General at a very difficult time, when the police service is under microscope. It's under microscope for various reasons. First of all, Mr. Speaker, for impunity. It is a time that the acting Inspector General is demonstrating absolute impunity against the court. It is at a time the Inspector General, the acting Inspector General, is demonstrating impunity by withdrawing bodyguards of a judge because of orders that they perceive to be adverse. That is absolute impunity. Mr. Chairman, it is also at a time when there are unexplained disappearances and abductions. Just this morning, the chairman was made to commit to make a statement tomorrow. There are so many instances of unexplained disappearances and abductions. Mr. Chairman, it is also coming at a time when there have been questions of the police handling of lawful...
Order, Otienda Molo. I'm now the Speaker, not Chairman. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know you are my chairman in other areas, so... But for these purposes, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, it is also coming at a time when there have been questions of the police handling of lawful demonstrations and picketing in terms of use of excessive force. But Mr. Speaker, I have examined the report of the committee and looked at the CV of the nominee, and I would say I'm impressed. I'm impressed first, Mr. Speaker, because from all the reports, this nominee is without blemish in his 39 years of service. That is not easy for a policeman. That is not easy for a person who has even been a deputy inspector general and a commandant of the GSU. That is rare. Mr. Speaker, I'm also impressed because this is a person who you'd say has risen from humble beginnings in the service, from the lowest possible level as a constable to come up to this high level. It is not easy. We are used to getting CVs of people who have come at a very high level. Mr. Speaker, I am also impressed because this nominee has shown resilience. If you look at the CV, this nominee is not a genius, but you are not required to be a genius to be the Inspector General. All you are required to do is to have a degree. This is a man who has gone through what we'd call elimu ya ngumbaru. He's a man who has educated himself from the lowest level. I see that he only got a diploma in 2009, got his degree in 2014. You know, this is a self-made man. He is resilient, and that is actually a good sign. And Mr. Speaker, I have also carefully looked at the report. There has not been any demonstration of impunity. And for me, that is critical. We need an Inspector General that understands that you must operate within the law. You know, Mr. Speaker, some things must be said. As the Inspector General of the police, you must have the humility that Nelson Mandela had when he was president. When Nelson Mandela was confronted with a court order that was adverse to government and he was urged to defy it, he said that I do not agree with the courts, but in the interest of this country, I will comply with those court orders. That is what an Inspector General must do, because as the foremost enforcer of the law, you must be seen to respect the law. If you don't, then those to whom you enforce the law will not respect the law. And I fault the acting Inspector General right now for showing impunity. When the courts require you to appear, all you need is appear. You don't need to defy and then issue a press conference explaining the functional and operational independence of the police service. There is no independence from the authority of the court. There is no independence from the authority of parliament. Your independence is within what is defined. When you are summoned by parliament, you must come. When you are summoned by the court, you must come. That kind of impunity is unacceptable. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, the acting Inspector General should know that he's walking on thin ice. First of all, strictly speaking, there is no provision to appoint an acting Inspector General. And I dare the committee to consider this matter. Section 16 of the National Police Service Act allows the president to appoint an acting Inspector General in the event of temporary absence of the Inspector General, which means there must be an Inspector General who is absent. Where there is no Inspector General, you cannot appoint someone acting. So when you have been, by the generosity of happenstance, appointed an acting Inspector General, you cannot then demonstrate such absolute impunity. You should be humble, because that happenstance can be withdrawn anytime. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this appointment. I want to urge that as Mr. Kanja comes in as the IG, let him demonstrate why we changed the police from a force to a service. Let him demonstrate the ability and confidence on what President Ruto promised, that there will be no unexplained disappearances. Let us have an era where we do not have that kind of thing. Let us have an era where everybody respects the law, everybody is below the law, and everyone then is held accountable. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Leader.
Give me the mic. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this report and also to support the appointment of one Douglas Kanja Keroche as the Inspector General of the Police. Honorable Speaker, allow me to say this at the beginning. This country and the Constitution transformed the police from a force to a service. Douglas Kanja is a man who can provide service in the police force, in the police service. He's not that person that will turn it from service to force. We have a candidate, Honorable Speaker, that is a humble man, a man who respects both the mighty and the lowly. He is a man that is destined to ensure that human rights in this country are respected. I know Douglas Kanja. I worked with him when he was the county commander in Kilifi. He was the boss of the county, but he worked with even the lowest of people. And today, if Kanja steps in Kilifi, everybody respects him. Everybody says this is a man that lived his time here well. I am sure even when he takes the seat at Vigilance House, people will be happy that we have that kind of an Inspector General. He has his job cut for him. And I think he's the best Inspector General we can have at this particular time, when the people who are there at Vigilance House are trying to turn back the clock of the gains that we have had at the police in this country. Issues of human rights, respect for law are being clawed back by the people that we have right now at Vigilance House. I believe, and I very strongly do so, that one Douglas Kanja will take us to the time that Kenya should be. The president has been very clear. He doesn't want to see forced abductions. He doesn't want to see extrajudicial killings. He doesn't want to see impunity in the law. He doesn't want to see that. But you can see there are people who are letting him down. But I believe that one Douglas Kanja will stand with the principles that the president upholds and ensure that forced disappearances in this country do not recur. These things that our chairman here is every day being told to explain, where is so-and-so, where did he disappear to? We have this case of the MCA of Wajir, Mandera. This is a simple case, but you see the back and forth. We have these people who are, the current Inspector General has been asked to explain in court. But because he feels he's bigger than the law, he doesn't want to go to court. I tell him, this government does not entertain impunity, and that Masengeli man must go to court and answer to the charges that he has been put there. Because that is being a servant. You cannot be above the law. And I think one Douglas Kanja will not purport at any one time to be above the law and to exercise the impunity that we are seeing. So I want to ask members here, even when Kanja served as the DIG, he listened to all of us. Yes. If you wanted something done, the only person you needed to talk to was Douglas Kanja Keroche. You give him a call whatever time, he will pick it, and he will actually act on your request. That is one Douglas Kanja. And I do not think he only did it for members of parliament. He also did it for other people who do not have rank in this country. Even the officers in the police service respect him. We need an officer who can be respected by the officers that he serves with in the police service. And one Douglas Kanja will bring honor, he will bring trust, and he will also bring respect to the police force. He also has one job that he must do: get rid of the corruption at Vigilance House and in the police force and the police service. He has that job cut for him. And I believe very strongly so, Honorable Speaker, that Douglas Kanja will actually do the job. Probably the police service will not be ranked anymore as the highest temple of corruption in this country, because I believe we have a man. And one last thing I want to say, I know Douglas Kanja fears God. He fears God. He's a religious man. He's a man that is schooled properly in Christianity and has been properly grounded. That I know. I have seen him. I've seen him practice it. And I know that we have one person that will transform the police service. I also want to say, I heard what the Honorable Senior Counsel, Otendi Amolo, said. I haven't heard him in this parliament say the kind of platitudes he has said about an officer. In fact, I was surprised that one Otendi Amolo today can actually say such things. It means we have the right man for this service. I don't think it's broad-based. It is because it has come from his heart and his experience with Douglas Kanja. And I would like to ask I know Rosa Buyu really wants to speak on this, but I want to tell Rosa Buyu, we have a good man that we have to approve for this job. So I want to urge all members of parliament, let us come here in numbers, let's vote to vote the right man for the job, who will not perpetuate impunity, who will not do things that our Inspector General should not do. And we have one man, Douglas Kanja Keroche, for the job. I support and I request all other members to support. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Shadrach Mwiti. Yeah, he's number one on the list. Proceed.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this noble motion whereby I support or I concur with the findings of the Joint Committee. Mr. Speaker, Douglas Kanja Keroche has proved to be a great reader. The leadership he has shown on his colleagues and also to the fellow Kenyans makes him a very good IG when approved. Mr. Speaker, the track record of Douglas Kanja is crystal clear. His leadership in the various operations that he has done or he has led proves that he is going to make an excellent IG when confirmed by my fellow honorable members. The period he has served, Mr. Speaker, almost 4 decades in the civil service or on the police service, Mr. Speaker, shows that he has the experience that given this opportunity, which I'm very sure you've given, and I'm confident that his experience is going to give his colleagues a great direction on their leadership. Mr. Speaker, when Douglas Kanja was a director in the DCI, he gave or he activated leadership and improved on criminal identifications, and DCI, as a DCI director, he proved that he is able to give good leadership. Mr. Speaker, when Douglas Kanja was in Eastern Province, he did a great thing or gave the election on policing and also, Mr. Speaker, the community engagements. Mr. Speaker, Douglas Kanja has shown great effort on ethical and integrity. For the 39 years Mr. Kanja has worked, he has not been implicated in any unethical activity. His integrity is very clear, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the findings of the Joint Committee is elaborate, and when Mr. Kanja is confirmed, I'm confident that the infrastructure of various police stations are going to improve. Mr. Speaker, I concur with the Joint Committee and associate myself with the report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Farah Malim.
Mr. Speaker, I also want to render my voice on this very, very important matter that's before us. Mr. Speaker, I have known Kanja for a few years. And I can tell you one thing, I am usually, ordinarily, normally, not too generous with compliments, but this is one man who has earned my respect, who has earned my respect in the criminal justice system. He is impeccable, he is very good, he's human, he's down to earth, and basically cares about this country the way a member of the security establishment in the country should be worried about our country. I come from an area that has got security issues. And one of the things that will impress you when you look at his CV, he started service in the Lokichokio area. The areas that essentially have got the same security situation as my area. And when you talk to him, it doesn't matter what time you call him, whenever there's an emergency, he is for sure going to call you back and he will attend to that problem personally himself. Every time I went to his office there and I said, these are the challenges we have there, he comes back to you when he has done a serious job. And always, invariably, every time, he has done something that was very patriotic and, in my opinion, exactly how somebody in that position should conduct himself and maintain the patriotism for this country, because there is nothing like a problem in the law and order. The moment you have a breakdown of law and order in a country, you don't have a country. You don't have a country. And I want him to continue with a very good job in this new position. He has our support. I can see the mood in the House is for him. I can attest to it. In my many years of being in politics and being a member of parliament, I have seen many, what do you call, he has no equal. Let me tell you one thing. He has absolutely no equal. So thank you very much, and I want to support the report of the Joint Committee, and I also implore on other members of parliament here in the National Assembly to support the appointment of Kanja as the new Inspector General for our country. Thank you.
The Honorable Lydia Haika.
Asante sana Spika, hata mimi kunipatia fursa hii ili niweze kuchangia katika mjadala huu ambao ni wa kumjadili huyu Inspector Jenerali wa polisi. Na kwanza nataka kuanza na kupongeza komiti ambayo imekalia ripoti hii na ikatuletea hapa. Nimeona ripoti ikiwa mzuri sana, wameweza kumchunguza vyema na wametuletea ripoti ambayo ni nzuri. Speaker, nataka kusema hivi. Huyu bwana Douglas Kanja Kirocho ni mtu ambaye ni mzoefu kwa kazi yake, na tumeona akipanda madaraka kuanzia alianza kazi hii akiwa kwa daraja ndogo, amepanda madaraka mpaka akafikia mahali amefika, na hivyo ndo tunataka kuona watu wakipanda vyeo hivyo na kuungwa mkono wakiwa wamefanya vyema. Kwa ubora wake tulimjua sana wakati alikuwa katika ile operation ya wakati kulikuwa na ile mambo ya bombing pale Dusit, na kwa kweli alifanya kazi nzuri na alifanya kazi vyema kabisa. Lingine ni kwamba hatujamsikia katika mambo ya ufisadi akitajwa, kwa sababu tumejua shirika hili la polisi limekuwa likiwa tajika sana, likitajwa na likihusishwa sana na mambo mengi ya ufisadi. lakini miaka yote hiyo ameweza kuwa katika shirika hilo, basi hajahusishwa. Hilo pia ni jambo jema na ni jambo la kupigiwa upato, na kwa hivyo nataka kuungana na wenzangu kuunga ripoti hii mkono na kumtakia kila laheri atakapopata fursa ya kuwa Inspector Generali katika taifa letu la Kenya. Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia fursa.
The Honorable Sarah Kurere.
Shukrani Mheshimiwa Spika. Naungana na wenzangu kuunga ripoti ya kamati ambayo imewakilishwa mbele zetu. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba nikiwa moja ya kamati ya usalama tuliweza kupiga darubini huyu Inspector Generali ama aliyekuwa naibu Inspector Generali, na ukweli ni kwamba Spika, umahiri na ukakamavu alionayo bwana huyu katika kutekeleza majukumu yake ni ya hali ya juu sana. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, ukitazama kwamba alianza kazi yake ama alianza wito, manake mimi naona kama kuwa askari wa polisi pia ni wito, katika umri mchanga, na ukitazama pale alipofanya kazi Kenya hii ni mahali kama vile Lokishogio, Kapedo na kwingineko. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, hamna anaelewa zaidi vizuri hali ya usalama katika kaskazini mwa nchi yetu, na pale ambapo usalama imekuwa ni kitu ambaye imetukera sana wenyeji. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, huyu bwana alipokuwa naibu Inspector Generali, ilikuwa rahisi kumfikia Kanja, rahisi mno kuliko kufikia komanda wa polisi katika kaunti yako mwenyewe. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunasema bwana huyu anastahili na anaweza. Sio kwa sababu ametoka mahali fulani, sio kwa sababu ako na jina fulani, ni kwa sababu ni Mkenya, na ni Mkenya ambaye anapenda nchi yake na amehudumia nchi yake kwa ukakamavu na pia kwa unyenyekevu. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukitazama masuala ya elimu, ukitazama kozi ambayo huyu bwana amepitia, ingewekwa pamoja na kusawasanishwa na degree, anaweza kuwa pia na PhD kwa yale ambaye ameweza kusoma kama polisi. Mheshimiwa Spika, nchi hii inahitaji polisi ambaye watahudumia wananchi, kwa sababu polisi ni huduma. Na nani ataleta hii huduma? Mimi naamini huyu bwana ataweza kutekeleza hayo. Lakini kando na hayo ni kwamba mara mingi tunajipata tukiwa viongozi, tukiwa wananchi, tukiwalimbikizia lawama chungu mzima polisi kwa sababu ya kutotekeleza majukumu yao. Lakini tunakosa kutazama kwamba mara nyingi hata katika bunge hii tunapofanya bajeti, ile bajeti ya polisi wanapewa ni pesa kidogo sana. Ndio maana nataka kusema kama mmoja wa kamati ya usalama kwamba hata tunapopea huyu bwana kazi, hata tunapokuwa na matarajio chungu mzima, lazima polisi wapewe yale mambo ama yale fedha yatakayowawezesha kutekeleza majukumu yao. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, mara mingi mambo yakiharibika, kila mtu ana hukumu polisi, maneno ya haki za kibinadamu. Na mimi huwa nauliza tu swali moja, polisi sio binadamu? Polisi hana haki? Unatuma polisi akatekeleze wajibu, hana nguo rasmi ya kumkinga, labda kutokana na kurushiwa mawe, hana vifaa zile anahitaji za kutosha. Sasa huyo polisi unataka afanye nini? Tunaposema maneno haki za kibinadamu, lazima tuelewe kwamba polisi wana haki. Na hawa polisi si polisi tu, manake hamna factory ambayo inatengeneza polisi. Factory ni sisi tumezaa wa watoto, ni watoto wetu, ni ndugu zetu. Kwa hivyo lazima tuangalie vizuri ili nao wawe na ile motisha ya kuweza kulinda haki na usalama ya Kenya vizuri. Manake usipopatia mtu haki yake, hamna yeyote atakayepeana kile ambacho hana. Kwa hivyo ukimpa haki, atakupa haki. Ukimkataza haki yako, nawe usitarajie kupata haki. Kwa hivyo ninasema hivi, Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono hayo. Na ningetaka tu kusema kwa viongozi wa Kenya. Kenya sasa hivi tuko tuna shida mingi, na sidhani shida yetu moja ni kujua nani anatawala mlima ama nini. Na ningetaka kusema hivi, Mheshimiwa Spika, katika nchi hii, viongozi wa nchi hii lazima wawe ni viongozi wa kuunganisha Kenya. Na iwapo yale tunaona yataendelea vile tunayaona, ati kwamba kuna watu fulani wamekuwa sasa ni viongozi wa sehemu fulani, basi hatuna budi tubadilishe katiba. Kila region ile ilikuwa 8 iwe na naibu wake, ndio tupate watu watazungumza juu ya Kenya mzima, sio mtu kila siku kusimama kuanzia asubuhi mpaka jioni ni mlima. Kenya iko na mlima, Kenya iko na bonde la ufa, Kenya iko na coast na kadhalika.
You must be relevant. Anyway, other members, the Honorable Joseph Kihangara Larry, MP Larry.
Mlima. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I happen to come from the Mlima that is being referred to. From the onset, Mr. Speaker, let me say that I'm a member of the Committee on Administration and Internal Security, and I sat through the approval hearing process, and I stand to support the committee report and also urge my colleagues, members, to approve the candidate, that is Mr. Kanja, for the position of the Inspector General. Mr. Speaker, from the hearing, you realize that Mr. Kanja was employed in his early 20s in the police force, meaning that he has worked for over 30 years in the police force. Mr. Kanja has risen through the ranks, starting from the position of a constable all the way to acting Inspector General. And Mr. Speaker, having Mr. Kanja appointed as the Inspector General is a way that will boost the morale of the police officers. Reasons being that if he has risen through the ranks to become now the Inspector General of Police, one of the problems we have in the police force is that there are people who are employed as constables and they stay in that position for forever, probably until they retire. Mr. Kanja will be the man now to bring the change that officers, as they serve, he is going to eliminate discrimination. Because we are aware that transfers and promotion of police officers has not been on merit in most cases. It has been on who knows who. And I think Mr. Kanja, having gone through the ranks, is somebody who's going to help us in this particular matter by boosting the morale of the police officers. Mr. Kanja, from the hearing, understands the challenges that are faced by police officers. We have been talking about police reforms, and these reforms on issues of corruption, on issues of the welfare of the police officers, all this has not been achieved. But Mr. Kanja is the right person to do this because he understands, for example, the deplorable conditions that police live in. He understands the issues that I've mentioned on promotion and transfers, and also the issue of corruption that is a big problem in this country. He's one man during the hearing who told us that if appointed as Inspector General, one of the things they are going to do, and especially in the traffic department, is to ensure that police officers have have body cameras so that they can be able to be traced where they are. You can also be able to see the actions they're taking on the roads. And this is one way of assuring Kenyans that with Mr. Kanja at the helm of the police service, we are going to see some very tremendous changes. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Kanja also has worked in very many parts of this country, as members have mentioned. He has worked in areas where we had issues of the cattle rustling, and that means he's one person also who will be able to organize a police force so that they can be able to tackle the issues on the ground, and Kenyans will be able to live in peace. So I believe Mr. Kanja is the most suitable person to hold this particular position. Congratulate him as we move to approve the position. and also urge him and ask him that he should serve Kenyans from all corners of this country, of course, without discrimination. And he did show us during the approval, when he was acting Inspector General, that he was able to handle issues raised by members of the public. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I support and thank you.
The Honorable Dikiri Mugambi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, I want to identify myself with the report of the committee and to say that this House to approve the candidature of Douglas Kanja Keroche. Mr. Speaker, I have looked at the report and the structure or presentation of the report has captioned all the details of the Constitution by law. Mr. Speaker, I don't need to belabor so much on what really the report has brought us because it has been very positive right from the word go. But Mr. Speaker, we must understand the structure of security in this country because that's where the importance of the Inspector General comes in. Mr. Speaker, the end of security in this country is none other than the President of the Republic of Kenya, who owns the Security Council of this nation and where the Inspector General and the CS sit in order to advise the President on matters of security. Mr. Speaker, it is therefore very important that we recommend and approve a person who will be able to address the issues of security at the Security Council of this nation. Mr. Speaker, we must understand as a House that the only organ of security that reports directly to the President is the National Intelligence Service. The other one reports directly to the Inspector General, who is in charge of operations of the security situations in the country. Mr. Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary in charge of security is only in charge of policy. But what we have witnessed in the past, Mr. Speaker, is the Cabinet Secretary is now been reduced into under the matters of operation. I think and I want to believe that the incoming of Douglas Kanja as the Inspector General, he will take up the responsibility of operations of the security organs in this country. Mr. Speaker, the Inspector General is in charge of three large departments. That is the Inspector General of Police, Deputy Inspector General of Police, and the Inspector General of Administration Police, or what they call CIPU, Critical Infrastructure Police Unit, and also now the traffic and the CID. This person in character, in experience, must be of high standard, and that's what we are seeing from the report that has been presented by the committee. I want to thank the committee for that. Mr. Speaker, the job specifications and job descriptions have been given, and I have no doubt in my mind that Douglas Kanja fit in that by character, by experience, and by identification. Mr. Speaker, we have witnessed a lot of security issues in this nation, and we need, Mr. Speaker, somebody who really is empathetic in character, somebody who is humility, somebody who is listening, somebody who is able to identify himself with the people that he is leading. One of the greatest problems that we have in the police leadership in this country is to have somebody on top there who has no clue of what the constables are going through out there. Mr. Speaker, the police of our security organs, right from the police post, they have no infrastructure. Some of them have very funny-looking uniforms. Some of them have no even weapons, and they are supposed to be police officers. I want to believe that arising from a police constable, 1985, to date, 39 years, this person can very easily identify himself with the personnel that he is leading. Because some of the staff, the way they operate, is because there's somebody who is on top there has no empathy. He doesn't think about these people. Mr. Speaker, I want to believe that this person has a lot of discipline. He has manifested himself. He has shown leadership. He has shown that he can see what other people are seeing. More so, we need somebody who is able to listen to the members of the public, and that is Douglas Kanja. Personally, Mr. Speaker, I have had a work experience with Douglas Kanja. You know, I bought a Isiolo and Laikipia where cattle rustling is bad, and I have seen Mr. Douglas Kanja in operation, in uniform himself. So, Mr. Speaker, I join my colleagues that this is the only person I have seen in the recent past. My experience with the 3 former Inspector Generals, I don't want to repeat that, but I want to believe now the best man is now about to be confirmed as the Inspector General of Police. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable Hussein Witan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Being a member of the Administration and Internal Security Committee, I can assure you that we have taken this nominee very seriously. We have taken him through very rigorous vetting. And what we have seen is that this is one person we can recommend for Kenyans. This is one person who can take this country to a higher level. This is one person who can see the interest of this country more than any other person. Douglas Kanja has served in this service for 39 years. 39 years from constable, when I was not even there. When I was maybe around 2-3 years old. And you can imagine serving from Lokichokio to Kilifi to Northeastern to Isiolo and everywhere. All the harsh areas where Kenyans call, the harsh areas. He served and he performed. I can assure you, when he served as the DIG, most of the members visited his office, the way he received them, the way he has taken action against the issues they raised. They can all be, a witness to what we have really forwarded to the National Assembly. We have vetted this man. We have checked on all the necessary requirements. This is one person whom we are sure that he will perform, change, the attitudes of the policemen, the servicemen, that is, the living standards, the housing. Police in this country are undergoing very serious challenges, especially in our areas in Northeastern Province. You can see police having, some of them spending even, in the cold, some of them without vehicles, and OCBD and OCS traveling, with the public means, with all those serious security challenges. This is one person we expect to change those kind of lifestyle and those kind of challenges. I want to request my colleagues to support us, because we have not approved this person just for the sake of who Kanja is, where he comes from, but we have approved him, following his academics, following his experience, following his experience, from the lowest level. We request you to approve so that he can start his duties as quickly as possible and change this country to the better. Thank you very much.
Very well. Before the next speaker, let me allow the Honorable Mutuse to just welcome the school from Makueni. And I give you 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, if you allow, I'll welcome the school and make my contribution so that we are timeless. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Honorable Mutuse. I've given you straight instructions. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, please allow me to welcome Ndundune Secondary School. Ndundune Secondary School is a school within my constituency. particularly in Emali Molala ward. Ndundune in Kikamba means a red squirrel, and for sure the place has very fertile red soil. For the students and your teachers, this is the National Assembly of the Republic of Kenya, created by the Constitution to debate on issues that are of concern to you, particularly education, and we'll be working together to ensure that you get the best education and also to create the necessary environment so that when you get out of secondary school, you can go for higher education and as well get jobs in the labor markets. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, we welcome Dundune Secondary School graciously to the House, and also we support the appointment of Mr. Kanja for several reasons that we will be stating, if you allow me. Mr. Speaker, 1 minute.
Order, order.
1 minute because
Take
I'm
your
on the mic.
seat. You have done the business that I gave you to do. Next to speak on this, and Honorable Mutuse, you must be very ordered. This is a house of rules and order. Let's have the next speaker making his comments on this, and these are people who have been waiting. And I want to tell the House that we have actually opened this debate, so we shall continue in the afternoon. So take your place and relax. Let's have the Honorable John Waweru.
Honorable Speaker, it would be sacrilegious of me to start without thanking the committee. The work that has been done by the committee led by the Honorable Tongoyo and the committee in Senate has been such a thorough job. We agree that this committee, the joint committee, were actually the gatekeepers for this plenary as they were preparing this report, a report that has been prepared so well and so professionally that even as we are debating it, we are debating a complete report. Mr. Speaker, I do thank and congratulate the Joint Committee of Senate and the National Assembly, and at the National Assembly led by the Honorable Tongoyo. Mr. Speaker, this report is covering all the important bases, and I would not want to belabor points that have been made here by members. I'd like to say that if we are seeking for professionalism, we have been given proof of how professional this gentleman is. If we are looking for integrity, they have gone through the lengths, they've gone to the lengths to ensure that this man is untainted, fresh, and ready to serve the Republic as an officer of the law. If we are looking for experience, this is a gentleman who joined the force 4 decades ago, has had an experience of a lifetime in the force. So we are not placing an individual from outside to the top of the police ranks, an individual who does not understand how the police service operates. Mr. Speaker, as Mr. Kanja comes to office, his work is cut out for him. Mr. Speaker, there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed in the police service. Mr. Speaker, we are in a new world. We are talking about being in the 4th industrial revolution. We are talking at a time when we are talking about things like artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, data analytics. The point I'm making here, Mr. Speaker, is that even criminals have improved their techniques of crime. The people who do not mean well for this country have also improved the techniques of crime, Mr. Speaker. We are talking about new avenues of crime. We are talking about cyber crime. We are talking about cyber attacks. The point I'm making here, Mr. Speaker, is that the old techniques of policing will not hack it in this day and age. We are in an era where technology becomes an important component of policing. And as I say that Mr. Kanja's work is cut out for him, I mean that we might need to professionalize the police force by introducing new techniques, using available technology, the technology of today, to make sure that we incorporate it in policing. Mr. Speaker, the President of this Republic made a pledge to the nation before he was elected. He said that the moment he is sworn in, that the moment he puts down the Bible, he shall disengage the police force and the police service from the office of the president. He even freed up the resources of the police so that the police are independent in the operation. Mr. Speaker, as Mr. Kanja comes to office, he might need to come with innovative ways of mobilizing resources to ensure that the police force is able to mobilize resources beyond that and which we are getting today, so that the police force is able to do what is necessary. Mr. Speaker, when I say that Mr. Kanja's work is cut out for him, we also need to relook at past laws, decrees, and regulations that have been made. Mr. Speaker, the honorable members that you see in this house have their hands tied. These members know that the police are living in very bad conditions in their constituencies. But Mr. Speaker, there was a decree that was made that the NGCDF cannot construct police houses or police lines in police stations, Mr. Speaker. Some of these decrees, we need to relook at them, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there was an arm of the police called the administration police. The police were able to assist the national government officers in their work, Mr. Speaker. The moment the administration police were withdrawn from the chiefs, from the ACCs, from the DCCs, our Ngao officers were left exposed, Mr. Speaker. So when I say that Mr. Kanja's work is cut out, some of the work he has to do is to look at some of these existing policies, legislations, decrees, and regulations that have been made so that we can reverse them for the good of our republic and to improve the plight of our officers. Finally, Mr. Speaker, this new man at the helm has his work cut out in terms of stakeholder engagement. We are told that the police is one of the boogeymen in this country, that it is a punching bag. The police must find a new way of engaging the different publics. The public that is the citizen, the public that is parliament, the public that is the executive. So Mr. Kanja will also have to be a diplomat as he does a diplomatic roadshow to be able to showcase a new face of the police to the different stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, it has been mentioned here that yes, Mr. Kanja does come from a region, and that is true, Mr. Speaker. We can never run away from that. But Mr. Speaker, this cannot be taken to be a charge on an individual. Everybody comes from a region. But even as we talk about regions, there are people like us. It is said that to come to this Nairobi, you either came by bus or you came by birth. Some of us came to Nairobi by birth. We belong in Nairobi. We may have traditional or heritage areas that we came from. But where we came from, we cannot fit there if we were all told to go back to our home areas. We have to have an understanding, as we are having regional conversations, that even in your region, you have very many people who live in diaspora. And when you heighten up the discussion about where each and every person comes from, us who are people who live in diaspora, where shall we be running to? We do not know any other homes, so Mr. Kanja is not presented to this house as a man from the Morima. He is represented to us as a professional with integrity who has experience and an officer who is able to serve as the IG of the National Police Service. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I do submit.
Daktari Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the report of the Joint Committee. Mr. Speaker, I must commend the Joint Committee for the work they have done. They have actually looked at all the relevant areas. They have looked at the processes that need to be taken into consideration, and they have found that those are correct. They have looked at the constitutional requirement, and they have found that. And Mr. Speaker, on the experience and the other characters of Mr. Kanja, I do concur with what is in the report. I've interacted with this gentleman, and I think the committee is actually stating what is correct about him. Mr. Speaker, there's only one issue that the committee has addressed, which I think has come out that we look at into the future, and it affects him. It was the issue of the retirement age of the Inspector General. It does look that the law as it is now is silent on that. The committee says it is exempt, but it really not exempt. What it says, at above the Deputy Inspector General, there's no inclusion. He talks about below that they retire at 60. Above that, it doesn't. And I think that is a lacuna in the law that we should look at in the future. Other than that, Mr. Speaker, I find that Mr. Kanja can actually, from what is in the committee, for the work he has done, from what members have said here, he actually fits the bill. And he really has to realize, Mr. Speaker, that the police is the most important unit in terms of internal security. You can have an army, you can have a strong army, but that does not really secure internal security. It is the police, the interaction with the civil society and with the people that really secures. And the police is extremely important in the criminal justice system. If they do not get out the investigations and the evidence properly, the criminal justice system will not work. We also know that Mr. Kanja will face challenges, and one of the challenges is actually the welfare of the police officers. We all know, and all of us saying that even their accommodation is not correct. We are also aware that there's a lot of homicide and even suicide amongst the police officers. This is a challenge. It indicates that there is some distress in their areas of work, the conditions of work, and I think that is something he will have to address. Mr. Speaker, there is also a challenge of the perception of what the police like in terms of corruption. I think that is what he will have to address. There may be reality in it, and that will have to be addressed administratively and legally as required, and we know he is capable of that. But also the perception. And another issue that really will change is the conduct of the police in relation to upholding the constitutional right during civil strife. This has not come out well. The way they have dealt with people during demonstrations that are legal, the use of what I'll call lethal force, the abductions that we have seen, we can't blame one man on this, but it is in the force. And now that when he takes up this job, I think that's the thing that he should really address. And the general conduct of the police and the attitudes towards the law, the police should see themselves as a service, as friends of the people. If you're walking in the street and you see a policeman, the correct attitude would be, that is somebody I can go to for safety, not that that is somebody that is likely to harm me. I know he's been in the service, and as a person he has done well, but these are the challenges that he has to address. And therefore, with that, Mr. Speaker, I support the report of the committee.
Honorable Soro, you've been waiting.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to join my colleagues in supporting the committee report about the nomination of one Mr. Douglas Kanja Kirocho. Honorable Speaker, this is one of the rare occasions where an officer, a career officer, is being supported across the political divide. It is quite shocking that a police officer is receiving overwhelming support from members of this House from both sides of the aisle. But, Honorable Speaker, there is one thing that has that really people raised upon the appointment and the nomination, or upon the nomination for consideration of one Mr. Kanja, Honorable Speaker, and that is the issue of age. But even before we get to that issue of age, Honorable Speaker, I mean, I don't think the National Police Service Commission, and indeed the appointing authority, could get a better person to serve in this capacity. A career public servant, a career police officer who's risen through the ranks from a police constable all through. He's actually done nothing in his life other than policing or doing police work. This is a person that has served this country with no single disciplinary case. You can imagine. It is quite uncommon for a police officer. And you'll agree with me, Honorable Speaker, that at the time Honorable Kanja was, Mr. Kanja was joining the service, it was at the time we had a police force not the police service. At the time when the police officers had the temptations to use force, had the temptation, had power to arrest you, they had power to put you in remand, to arrest you for merely having a black nose or big nose, and say, you look like you do not have an ID. They ask for an ID, you provide, they say, okay, give us now kitambulisho, give us this and this. They used to, because of that old culture of the police force. But this police officer, Honorable Speaker, has been in service without a single complaint from the member of the public, from any member of the public in regard to his service. I mean, we couldn't get, I don't think the appointing authority could have gotten a better person to serve as the Inspector General of Police. But more important, Honorable Speaker, look at the personality of Mr. Kanja. Look at his demeanor. He's appeared on media to address several issues of national interest. Look at the way he presents himself. I mean, with a lot of composure, extreme maturity display, and commitment to his work. This is the best person, Honorable Speaker, for this work. Then now, much work will have done the smallest part of our work to have him passed in this house. But much work is needed of him going forward. Number one, he has a lot on his table. Even as we talk about, police brutality, sometimes we raise issues about the way the police officers conduct themselves, which of course they haven't changed. Today, Honorable Speaker, I need to raise, to speak from the other side, Honorable Speaker, that Mr. Kanja has got a higher responsibility to take care of his officers. The morale in the police service is going down. Some senior officers, the inspectors, the chief inspectors, Honorable Speaker, some of them they still harass the junior officers. The way the officers live, the way the way they operate, the places they live in, Honorable Speaker, is still deplorable. Mr. Kanja has a responsibility to defend them before the National Police Service Commission, and I'm sure that is what some members want to raise an objection over, that as the head, because everything rises and falls on leadership, he has that responsibility to reinstate the morale of the junior police officers. At least much of the work in terms of their salary has been reviewed by this House and the President, but still much needs to be done as far as morale is concerned. But again, more important, Honorable Speaker, Article 49 is not well executed by police officers. Article 49 of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, provides that the rights of arrested persons, that when you arrest a person, you need to tell them why you've arrested them, you need to listen to them, then you give them a right to call any person that they may deem fit. But still to date, young people, young jobless people in the streets get arrested and then they are still told, utaongea mbele. Such are the disciplinary things that the Honorable Mr. Kanja needs now to check and teach his junior officers, that you don't just move around. We have now moved from the police force. It is now a police service. It doesn't cost you much as a police officer to talk to your fellow Kenyan in a soft language. I mean, really, why would you harass people and tell them, utaongea mbele? So such are the things that we really need to review, Honorable Speaker, going forward. But on the age issue that I had said earlier, Honorable Speaker, Article 45 of the Constitution and Section 11 of the National Police Service, Honorable Speaker, does not, in as much as it provides qualifications and the appointments of the IG, it is still silent on the age matter. It's silent. So he is virtually 61, but the provisions of the law are still silent. Of course, people will challenge us that there is Rule 70, Honorable Speaker, of the Public Service Regulations that, of course, talks about the public servants, mandatory age being 60. But again, that is public service, public servant. Then, that is separate, doesn't apply on the IG because there is an element of the definition of who qualifies to be a public servant or who qualifies in that particular provision. And then now that, of course, is provided for under Article 260 of the Constitution, which then now defines who then is to be called a state officer, Honorable Speaker. I mean Article 234, sorry. So, Honorable Speaker, with those very, very many remarks, I implore on this House to expedite this process and have Mr. Kanja passed so that we can have a substantive IG of the police. Because there has been a debate, on orders of the court, you know, being defied by the acting Inspector General of Police. I mean, now we are going to have a substantive one because we really need not to delve into such matters. But again, we also advise the police and the judiciary that we all maintain our independence. The police unit is independent in terms of the operations, and the judiciary is also independent because there is a delicate balance. At one point, you hear a judge complaining about the withdrawal of security officers, and at the other side, they say they are independent. When the the Inspector General comes and says, you know, we are independent, it also raises the issue. Those instruments or those institutions that have been set by the Constitutional Speaker are independent in their own rights. The judiciary is independent and the police is independent. But again, Honorable Speaker, even as a court officer, it's important, of course, for us to also, because I speak now as a court officer, as an advocate of the High Court, it's important for people to obey court orders. But again, we also need not to personalize. And this I really must say, that judicial activism should also stop. We need not to personalize public service. If in the place of the IG sends the DIG to represent him, because that is public service, I mean, that should also be taken in. You can't just say, now that, you know, I simply want the IG. What happens of the DIG? Because we have the IG, then we have a DIG in charge of the AP, then we have another DIG in charge of the regular police. It still, I can't really define how a judicial officer can say, fine, if the DG has been, the DIG has been set.
You know, you have deviated. There's a point of order here now. Yes, what's the point of order?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member.
I respect Mr. Soro, but you see, when a mistake is done, it is wrong for us as a house to defend it. The judge had the platform of seeking whoever he wanted to come. And really, you are out of order to say that the alternative was okay. I think that is wrong from this house to come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I really still do not understand the point of order. Well, I was simply making my case that in public service, in my place, if I am called upon by any senior officer in government, Honorable Speaker, and I opt to send Honorable Naomi, Honorable Speaker, I'll be right to send Honorable Naomi because we are within the public service. But what I would say, even in conclusion on that line, Honorable Speaker, the acting IG still has a window. He was given 7 days, and we really need to delve that because the 7 days have not lapsed. Nobody should actually blow a unnecessary trumpet as far as his wars are concerned. But with those very many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support the report by the committee. Thank you very much.
Well, Minority Leader, as a ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I will be very brief and short. Mr. Speaker, on this matter, Mr. Speaker, this is one of the approval or the appointments that in this House you say give it a chance, Mr. Speaker. It's an approval that you can describe, let's give it a chance, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, why do I say so? Mr. Speaker, since the new constitution came in place, I don't think this country has gotten it yet right in the appointment of an Inspector General, Mr. Speaker. As you're aware, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution, when it was enacted, was very clear on how, Mr. Speaker, what is this market going on here?
Order, Elachi. I know that matter is juicy of court orders, but please, order. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when the new Constitution came into place, the criteria of getting a new IG was very clear, Mr. Speaker. And the office of the Inspector General was made a constitutional office, Mr. Speaker. But what happened? Through legislation, Mr. Speaker, this House changed the method of appointment of a new Inspector General. What was emphasized in the Constitution was that the National Police Service Commission, which is also an independent commission, was supposed to advertise in the dailies, in the media, for people to apply who wants to become the Inspector General of Kenya. Then after that, the National Police Service Commission was supposed to shortlist and come up with a few number that they can interview and then recommend names to the President, Mr. Speaker. We sat in this House in one afternoon and we changed And we went back to the old way of doing things, where the president now nominates someone, then it's taken to the commission, then like this, like that, then the same person comes to this house to be approved as Speaker. That is not what the new constitution was thinking about. Then we went down even to the deputy DIGs, who are not even vetted by anybody, who are appointed directly by the president, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one of the biggest problems this country is facing is security. And if we don't get it right, we shall continue having problems day in, day out, Mr. Speaker, and that is why investment will be a problem, because there is no investment without security. We want to have, with this, the new constitution changed our police force to a police service, Mr. Speaker. And there was a reason why that was done. Because people wanted an institution that provides services, not an institution that overloads on them, Mr. Speaker. Every year, every government that comes into place, Mr. Speaker, talks about police reforms, but nothing happens. It's just the word. It's just the statement. It ends there. We are going to reform the police. We are going to have a responsive police. We are going to have, when you see our policemen in this era, in this time, Mr. Speaker, carrying rungus in town, Mr. Speaker, it's shame. Very shame. They are carrying rungus to beat up citizens, Mr. Speaker. Well, how can that happen, Mr. Speaker, in this era of today? My last thing is, Mr. Speaker, the new police inspector general must come and address the welfare of the policemen of this country, Mr. Speaker. The kind of places our policemen stay and live with their families, Mr. Speaker, no one can accept to live in that situation who is a member of this House, Mr. Speaker. That issue must be addressed conclusively if the new Inspector General is to leave any legacy, Mr. Speaker. And I want to warn him there, from the floor of this House, if he is going into that office to be used politically so that he can fight certain political groupings, like the way they fought Azimio when we were doing Mandamano, Mr. Speaker, then he is going for the wrong job. Even though now they are calling it broad-based, we want everybody who is not in broad-based or who is in broad-based or who is in broad-nusu, you should make sure that the citizens' rights are upheld, Mr. Speaker. And they are the law enforcers. It is the police that enforces the law, Mr. Speaker. They must enforce the law impartially. If they are going to side, if the Inspector General will be used to do certain sectarian orders, Mr. Speaker, we are going to take action against him in this House. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude now by saying that Mr. Kanja has been a career policeman. He has served 35 years in the police service, 39 years, I am told. I hope and pray that he will do things differently. I hope and pray that we are going to have a police service that is responsive, and for that reason, I am saying we do this approval based on what is called, let's give it a chance. I'm not saying that I am fully satisfied, but let's give him a chance. We see how he performs. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Jane Kagiri.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the appointment of Mr. Douglas Kanja. Honorable Speaker, many a times in this House, our committee presents a report, and from the findings that they give us, you find yourself disagreeing with some. On this occasion, Honorable Speaker, I tend to agree with everything that has been said about Mr. Douglas Kanja. Honorable Speaker, I first got to know Mr. Douglas Kanja through a phone call when he was the GSU commandant. We never got to meet in person, but the request I had, he actually assisted me over the phone. Honorable Speaker, listening to the credentials of Mr. Kanja, this is a great man that we all need to learn a lot from. Number one, Honorable Speaker, the GSU commandant, Mr. Kanja, still remains the same man as the DIG. And I believe will continue to be the same man as the Inspector General. Honorable Speaker, I believe there are only 4 areas I would want to speak to Mr. Kanja about. The first one, looking at his career progression, it is my hope and prayer that he will stand up and assist his junior officers in their welfare and in their growth in the police service, having had the experience of growing through the system. The second thing, Honorable Speaker, during the demonstrations, we watched a lot of miscommunication from the police service. Honorable Speaker, it is my hope and prayer that with Mr. Kanja in place as the Inspector General, we will have more communication with fellow Kenyans, explain to them what is required in demonstrations and what is not allowed, Mr. Speaker, so that in the eventuality, nobody finds themselves in the wrong side of the law when they're exercising their right. The third thing, Honorable Speaker, I would want to remind Mr. Kanja that Laikipia still remains a very sensitive area in terms of security. We are very grateful that we now have National Police Reservists. It is my hope and prayer again that he'll remember these young men and women who spend their nights protecting others and ensure that they get their medical cover as well as they get improved allowances, Honorable Speaker. Finally, Honorable Speaker, I would want to speak on the final thing, Honorable Speaker, I would actually want to say is with the great personality Mr. Kanja has, we hope he's going to have good collaboration with other agencies. And other agencies, I mean the IPOA, the Independent Police Oversight Authority. An authority that believes it is okay for a police officer to be injured, but it's not okay for the police officer to protect themselves. Honorable Speaker, that is one area that I hope is going to build a collaboration. Honorable Speaker, I conclude by saying, herein comes a great man. I wish Mr. Kanja all the best, and I know he's going to do this Kenya good. Thank you.
Is the Honorable Charles Ngusia in the House? In his absence, then we have the Honorable Karolio Mondi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I don't know how many minutes I have. Maybe 7, eh?
Donate for me too.
I'll try and be brief. People are asking me to make a donation of some of the minutes, but I'm not sure I have the power, but I will try and do my best. Mr. Speaker, my contribution will not be so much on the qualifications of the candidate. I just want to talk about the process of vetting and how we could improve it so that this House may the better be enabled to discharge its functions more effectively. Mr. Speaker, under our standing orders number 195 and 204, any member is actually entitled to participate in any vetting committee and raise questions. But I don't think most of the members are aware of it. And I would like to suggest that when we are dealing with vetting processes, then the leadership of the House, the Speaker's chair, should communicate to members and invite them if they have any issues to participate in the vetting process. But I would also like to note that when you read this report, it is short on a few issues. Like the way the integrity question is being answered is not exactly exhaustive. I think we need to have a deep dive into the working business and history of the nominees. I'm a little taken aback that what the House has been doing is purely to look at the letters from certain government agencies like EACC, CID, and the rest. And we do not exercise our powers under Article 125 of the Constitution to suo motu or in our own motion, call for information and access public records or private records dealing with business, work, tenure of most of these nominees. I think just to rely on letters from EACC and then to say, okay, we have no question on the integrity of a candidate is not good enough. I think we should go deeper and invoke Article 125 of the Constitution and truly interrogate the issue of integrity of most of the nominees that we bring to this House. Secondly, if you look at this report, even questions of domain knowledge are not very exhaustively discussed. And again, I think as a House, we need to do much better than this and interrogate like every candidate on their domain knowledge of the sectors that they are being tasked to manage. There is no reference on transnational crimes in this report, the capability of the candidate to deal with such issues, counterterrorism measures, all issues of corruption. They are just mentions. So it's not a very exhaustive report in my view. You cannot really look at the candidate and say, okay, we are getting the right person for the IG to deal with the current challenges in our criminal sector. Finally, because I want to save time, there is nothing in the report telling us about the nominees' planned policy initiatives to deal with fundamental issues in that sector. What kind of reforms does he intend to undertake? We don't have a flavor of what his views or what his philosophy on crime and crime preventions are. There's nothing about the welfare. What are his views about welfare of police officers? Issues to do with value for money as an administrator, rationalization of public expenditure, suppression of corruption, even how he intends to actualize Article 10 and Chapter 6 of the Constitution and make the police force corruption free. There are so many issues that are missing in the report. Mr. Speaker. And I would really urge the House and the leadership to look into the question as to how we conduct our vetting of nominees and see how we can make this a truly interrogative and productive process, so that we don't just undertake perfunctory functions, bring reports here, and we then endorse. But nonetheless, I don't know this gentleman. I have no views on him. I don't have a report that can enable me to make very informed decisions about him, and I leave the matter as that. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Minority Whip, just take a bite of the 2 minutes. Proceed. Order, Honorable.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important report, as I congratulate the committee for doing great work in doing the analysis and everything and giving us this good report that will guide this House in making this great decision. I also want to say that Douglas Kanja is somebody I have interacted with. He's a humble person who listens to people and who also acts on time. And because of time, I may not be able to say all that I wanted to say, but the areas that he needs to give attention are the following: corruption, abductions of people, homicide is getting worse in our country, and then the police fraternity needs a lot of attention, and their welfare, their families. Many police officers have committed suicide and have also killed or done a lot of harm to their families. He needs to give a lot of attention, proper counseling to be set aside, and their welfare to be put into consideration, so that we can have police officers who are able to guard the nation and to give the service to the people when they are all happy with the services that they are getting. I want to say that we have a lot of hope in him and pray that he will soon take up the office. Thank you.
Alice Nganga, discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to add my voice to this important report. First, I want to thank the Committee on Administration and Internal Security, as well as the Senate, for coming up with this report. Chair, Honorable Speaker, when I looked into this report, I can tell you this gentleman is qualified to lead this nation as Inspector General. He's very capable, he's very experienced, he's up to the task, he's very dedicated, his public relation. I did not know Mr. Kanja until there was a situation in my constituency. And just a pastor from that place told me that he has Kanja's number, and he said that I want to call him, he will pick. And believe you me, he picked that phone call without knowing who is calling. So I can say his public relation is up to the task, and he will be able to do this work. In integrity, when it comes to matters to do with integrity, our constitution stipulates that you are supposed to go clearance from various departments of this nation. And we have seen from this report that KRA cleared him, EACC cleared him, ODPP cleared him, DCI cleared him. And Honorable Speaker, you know this is a man who has been in this force since he was 20, for the last 30 years. And we did not hear any incidences that has happened where he was serving. All what we can say, and you have seen he has grown from the ranks from low level to where he is today. And we have seen when we are going through this report, there was no godfather, there was no godmother to push him. It is him and his work and his God, and he has made it to this far. What we can do is to wish him well. We tell him Kenyans are really waiting for him. His tray is full. We need to see this experience of that years, what he's going to do with this. I know he's very sagacious. He can take this country to the next level. All we need to do this time is to wish him well. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
We may be upstanding. Honorable members, and the time being 1 p.m., this House stands adjourned until Wednesday, 18 September 2024 at 2:30 p.m.